In this video, we're going to talk about some of the commands you can use in Linux to get some information about the system. The first command we're going to talk about is uptime, which displays information about how long your system has been running. It also gives you information about the number of users and the system load. So if I type uptime at the Linux prompt, you can see that this has been up for a day. There's only one user logged in, which is me. And I'm definitely not taxing the system to any real extent because the load is 0 all the way across the board. The date command displays the current date and time, and it also allows you to get a custom formatted date time output using various variables. So there's variables for the year, month, and day, for the hour, minute, and second, also the name of the day of the week and the month, and the number of the day of the week. So for example, Monday would be 2, Friday would be 6, and so on. There's several other variables you can use to format your output, and that can be helpful when you're writing a shell script where you're looking for a specific format. So if I say date, you can see that it gives me the date, Thursday, June 3rd at 3:50 p.m. Mountain Standard Time 2021. Now, if I want to get the date in a different format, I'll put a plus sign, and then in quotes, I want the time, and I'll use the variable for time, then a new line, which is %n, and then %d is the variable for the current date, and so you can see I get the output in this format. I could also do something like this, where I say %a, that's the name of the day of the week, is the %u is the number of the day of this week in %b is the name of the month, and %y is the year. And so you can see when I give this, it gives me Thursday is the 4th day of this week in June 2021. So there's a lot of options for this output depending on what you want to do. The cal command displays a calendar, and I can have it display output for an entire year or a calendar for just one specific month. So if I just type cal, the default is the current month, and notice the current day is highlighted. I could get it a calendar for the entire year by giving it a year, and you can see here's a calendar for 2021. I can go in the past and get a cal for a random year in the past. Here's 1066, or for a specific month. So for January 2000, I can say cal 1 2000. There's January 2000. I could also say cal 3 2021 to get a calendar for March 2021. The history command will give me a list of the commands that I've executed previously. And in some cases, I may want to keep those commands a secret. For example, if I accidentally type my password at the prompt, or if for whatever reasons I want to cover my tracks, I can give it the -d option to clear all the history, or I can delete a specific entry with -d and the number of that entry. And then I can also use Control-R at the prompt to search and retrieve history. And so we'll see an example of that in a moment. So first, Control-R. And notice now the prompt has changed after I hit Control-R. It says reverse iSearch. And if I type date, notice there's the last command that had date. Or let's suppose I want to find a calendar command with 2021 in it. And there you can see there's the result of that command. So Control-R can definitely save you time if you are using commands over and over. Another thing is you can also up arrow through the previous commands like I'm doing here. And then Control-C will return you to the original prompt. Now history displays a list of that history, and you can see I have quite a long history here. So let's suppose I don't want anybody to know I got a calendar of the year 1066. So I will history -d, and that's line 662. So now if I say history, line 662 is no longer calendar of 1066. It's what was the next thing in the history. And to clear all the history, -c. So now there's no longer any history stored. The who am I command displays the username of the currently logged in user. So in this case, it's me, Wade Huber. And you may think this is an odd command. However, just suppose you came upon a terminal that was logged in. You could use who am I to determine who that was. So you could go talk to them and say, hey, I want to use this terminal. Can I log you out? Or if you're running a script, you can use the who am I command to get the username of the user who's running the script. The which command displays the absolute path of the command. That's the directory where the executable for that command is located. Now, when you type a command, Linux looks through the path, which is a list of directories where you would expect for those executables to be located. So -A will display every location, whereas if you leave the -A off, it will just show you the first one it comes to in the path, which would be the one that would actually get executed if you typed that command name. So which, and let's say who am I, and that says that who am I is in user bin. If I do a which of ls, notice ls is actually aliased. We'll talk about aliases later in the semester. And so that's alias so that it will display colors. And so here you can see the directories are all blue. And then also that this ls is located in user bin, where again is where we would expect the commands to be located. The echo command displays a string. It can also be useful for checking to see how the shell will expand certain wildcards. You can also give it the -E option to ensure that it will interpret escape characters as the escape character versus just a slash and then another character. So for example, a new line is \n, and in this case, without the -E, that would be interpreted as just two characters. With the -E option, that would be a new line in the output. Another common use for echo is to display the value of variables, specifically environment variables like the path variable that gives you the path. And there's also several other variables that you can get with the env command. So if I just say echo, I get a blank line, but I can get the path, and notice that gives me whatever directories are in the path. I can also echo a string, and I'm going to put a new line here, and notice that treats the \n as two separate characters. However, I'll use up arrow to bring the exact same command, and I'll edit it to add the -E option. And now notice I get a new line there instead of the two characters. If I want to know how something will be expanded by the shell, I can echo D*, and I can see that D* is expanded by the shell to list all of the files in the current directory that start with a capital D. The df command displays information about disk usage, and you're usually going to want to use the -H option, which displays it in a format that's easier to read. You can also get your output of the available sizes in bytes or megabytes with the -K or -M flags. The -A option will ensure that all the file systems are listed, even dummy file systems, and the -T will display the file system type. So just a regular df gives us this output, and if I give it the -H flag, you'll see that now instead of blocks, it gives me the size in an appropriate format. So here we have 93 megabytes. This particular file system is the main root file system. You can see there's the slash there, and it has 27 total gigabytes, of which 5.6 are used. If I give it the -M flag, and now since I'm giving multiple flags, I can just do one dash and then list each flag after that. So I could do HM, which is equivalent to df-h-m. You can see the output is the same. But anyway, here, everything is in megabytes. And so notice I no longer have the M at the end because the output is in megabytes, and the gigabytes have been converted. So now instead of 5.6 gigabytes, it's 5,674 megabytes. And I could do the same for bytes, and that just gives me a little more specific information about how exactly big each of these file systems are and how much available space there is. And then finally, if I do -H-T, it tells me the type of the file system. And so you can see that those are tempfs, xfs, and so forth. If you want help about a command or a system call, you can use man, that's short for manual page, and that'll display information about a particular command or system call. Now, there's multiple sections to the man pages, and those vary slightly depending on the specific version of Unix you're using. But for the most part, you're always going to see the commands in section 1, system calls in section 2, library functions in section 3. After that, sometimes there's some variance, but typically section 4 is for special files or file formats, 5 is for games, 6 is for miscellaneous information, and 7 for system administration tools and information that is useful for the root user. So if I say man, it asks me what manual page do I want. So specifically, let's say I want information on the ls command. And so you can see it gives me its name, a high-level example of how to execute the command, and then it gives me a list of what all the options are. And so you can see there's quite a lot of options here. And I'm scrolling down with the spacebar here until I get to the end. It says who wrote it, some information on reporting bugs, copyright information, and so forth, and then I'll quit. Now, if I do make directory, notice we get make directory 1, which is how I make a directory, and section 1 is for commands. But there's also a system call. So in section 2, if I do man2 make directory, notice now it's giving me information about this particular C system call. So here's the forward declaration, here's the include files that are needed, and then again, some description of how it works, the return value, the errors that may occur, and so forth. So that's under section 2. Now printf is a C function. So if I say man3 printf, notice in addition to printf, it also says this information is valid for fprintf, dprintf, sprintf, and so forth. I need to include standard io.h to use printf, and then it gives me a description of what printf does. It'll also give me the descriptions of what the other ones, so you can see, for example, that fprintf and vfprintf write to an output stream, sprintf and its variants write to a character string, and then it gives you information on formatting and so forth. So there's a lot of useful information here. You could probably make the case that this is too much information. However, if you really want to know a lot about printf, this is really good stuff to read. And again, I don't expect you to memorize this. I'm not going to ask you, for example, what some random option is for the commands. I'll give you a list of some of the important options that you need to know, but that's more than sufficient. And the nice thing is that's all here if you want to use it. And so at this point, we're done with our examples for this video. So we're going to see the exit command. Since we're done, we can look at our history and see all the work we did. So it looks like we were pretty busy. And now that we're done, we can exit with the exit command. And now our terminal is closed. Keep in mind, if you're on a shared computer, you would also want to log out in whatever way your particular system intends for you to do that. So this is CentOS. So I can come here, click on this power button, and then say power off if I want to. And that's what I'll do.